I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court?
Chris, I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And also,
he means majority in the Senate.
So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
Election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, insurance companies are going to love this.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions, they're saying.
Actually, there are. Diabetes, some form of comorbidity.
Yeah, at least.
The 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into...
One of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
but
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
Now. I am,
and
the
they're going to dominate
party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not
Democratic Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of
Obamacare.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're debating him, not me. Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe.
The
individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question.
Go ahead.
So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something.
Ooh, that's a good
There's
line.
nothing symbolic.
Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it. And that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to do is
Super Tuesday. You got
look,
very lucky.
Here's the deal. I got very lucky, and we get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that.
You agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better.
The irony is he should be doing,
we took away
how are
the
you going to pay
individual
for
mandate.
it to Donald
We
Trump
guaranteed
here?
pre-existing
If you
conditions,
eliminate
but
the
took away
individual mandate,
individual
how are you going to
mandate.
pay for Obamacare?
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan.
This is terrible. He
And the
sounds
fact is,
repetitive
this man
and
doesn't know what
old.
he's
He should be
talking
calling him
I
fat.
have one final
And I've
question
said
for you,
this many times.
Mr. Vice
and apparently
President.
Felix agrees with me as well.
If Senate Republicans,
Call him
we're
fat.
talking originally
Call him a
about the Supreme
clown.
Court here.
Call him a
if
donkey.
Senate Republicans,
Fat
justices
shame
there,
the
call this a
president.
Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
you're a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so-
list?
All right, gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
This is so bad. Oh, I'm going to die. My heart, it's going to give out. I'm going to go ahead and give
Normal.
that to Trump, by the way.
My
That was a
question for both
1-0
of you,
on the
and
first
done
subject.
so
200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is
Good
because
line.
you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
Could have been
So,
executed
if
a
we
little
would
bit
have
better,
listened to
but
you.
You have 2
good,
minutes, sir.
good overall
If we would
message.
have fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me
What did
just
I
tell
tell you
something. I
guys?
don't care. But I'll
Literally
tell you, Joe,
hitting
you could never have done the
same
job that we
notes
did.
that he's been
You don't have it in your
practicing in
blood.
his
You could have
Type
never done
5
that, Joe.
I
on
know
all
how
of his
to do the
campaign
job.
stops. He's
I know how to
just
get the
repeating
job.
the
Well, you
same
don't do very
line.
well in H1N1. You were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not
Say, Trump, you don't know how to do
200,000.
math.
There was no economic
This is
decision.
how
You
they
should
made
turn
it.
around and be
Point,
like,
let him
14,000 people
answer.
died.
No
You
one-
killed
there's
200,000.
no- we
If you
didn't
think
shut down
swine
the
flu is
economy.
bad, then what
This
the
is
f*** do you have to say about
economy. It's being
coronavirus?
shut.
No,
How
it's
many
not
of you got up
enough.
this
The
morning
way he's delivering is
and
so
had an
shit.
empty
His
chair at the
delivery is
kitchen
garbage.
table? How
I know
many
he
of you
said
were
the
in a situation
14,000,
where
but his
you lost
delivery is
your
garbage.
Mom or dad, and there's millions of scientists. There's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci-
scientists
I
that
just
are
want to
in
remind
charge.
everyone that
They will
Bernie
have the
Sanders
vaccine
died
very
for
soon.
this.
Let him finish.
You
Bernie
believe
Sanders
for a
died for this.
moment.
Thank you, Obama.
A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you
man.
know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years
say
you've
he's
done
a
this.
have this
Wharton
debate.
cuck.
If you would have had, let me just tell you something,
Say
Joe.
your daddy
If you
bought
would
your
have
way
had
into Wharton, you
the
stupid old.
charge of what I was closed,
Say
the
your
greatest
dad
economy in the
bought
history
your
of our
way
country.
into
And by
Wharton,
the way, now it's
and
being
you're
built
the
again.
first
We're
Biden
going
up
into the
fast.
economy in the next
to go to
segment.
college in your
It's
family.
going up.
Increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows
It's like
up with the
making
biggest
fun of him
mask
for
I've ever
wearing
seen.
a mask.
I will
What the
say, I will say,
well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
and they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
You're the fucking president.
Dr. Fauci.
Your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
It's true. Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not?
And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he has? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question.
Talk about Herman
He said,
Cain.
No.
Talk about how he killed Herman Cain.
Put on your mask. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the
Herman
social
Cain,
distancing, people wearing masks.
Get
Ask
the crowds.
Herman
You would have
Cain's
done the
Twitter
same thing,
account
but you can't.
how
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen,
successful
can we move
those
on to the
rallies have been.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
It's still
economy?
tweeting
The
about
economy
coronavirus.
to growth, which
I'm
is
glad
going
he
to
took
be there,
700
is not
days
going to
off
be nearly as big as
to
they
prepare for
had
this debate.
expected.
Millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's
That's
just
the wrong
yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right.
Even when he's on, he's like coherent, but it's not great.
People want their schools open.
You know what I mean? It's
they don't
not
want to
like
be shut down.
it's not as
They don't want their
impactful.
they
He's
want
not as
their restaurants.
punchy,
I look
but
at New
still
York,
pretty
it's
good.
so
That was a
sad
good
what's
response.
happening.
As you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years.
Alley-oop.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million one year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections.
2016.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see
When?
it. But let me just tell you,
When?
Chris, let me just tell you something, that he passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation
But you're the president.
and for
But you're the president.
tax credits.
Please.
We build a building and we get tax
Please.
credits like
You're
the
the
hotel
president, and what
on
did you do? You
Pennsylvania
didn't
Avenue.
fix
get
the
a
system.
massive,
You made it
which,
worse.
by the way, was given to
Joe.
me by the
Please,
Obama
I'm begging you.
administration, if
Mention
you can believe
that he made it worse.
Now, the man got...
We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
he
booming.
Blew it. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to,
1929.
is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID came in.
when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take... No, you're on number 2.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take a
guy,
miracle. And also,
Simply
while
not
we're at it,
true.
why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Oh, this is so bad.
None of that is true. It is
Call
not true.
him.
Really?
This is not
Mr.
about
President.
my family or his family. It's about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect $3.5
people.
million
He
for
doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that
don't get rid
is
of the
absolutely
you know what, you're,
not
stop.
true.
You're doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
I'm
I'm
glad that no woman is running for this position because they would be far too emotional for the job. It's very clear that these two men are doing a really good job showing how unemotional they are.
You talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans.
He did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country.
I could have whispered these lines in the Trump's ear.
If you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time.
What did I tell you?
You call them super predators. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. Oof. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look,
the worst
Seattle,
person for this.
They heard
There's no way that anyone comes out of this thinking that Joe Biden is doing a good job, right? Am I crazy? Trump is being rude, but it doesn't matter. People are angry.
But look,
Donald Trump's response to the police, to black people, was immediately to monologue about police, by the way. Goes to show you exactly what the he thinks about black people. Law and order and the police.
Your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military. No,
what is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal.
So there has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York,
when it happens in Republican places,
like
it's fine.
Nobody's ever seen anything. The numbers are going
crazy. Focus on the black
people,
on. Please.
And he doesn't want to say law and
Chicago,
order because he can't,
which is a
because
substitute
he'll lose his
for
radical
black
left
people.
supporters. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
What does that mean, I wonder? I wonder what he's saying when he says our suburbs would be gone.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's
that adrenochrome really kicked in now. The problem is most people watch the beginning and don't watch all the way through.
You know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
The
point is that he doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And you have repeatedly criticized the the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
It's not even a one-to-one.
But
do it.
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left. This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI. FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving on.
Don't move on to that.
That's not an idea.
He just said right-wing paramilitary, stand by. I will not tell you to back away because your cause is just.
And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow.
That's a good swap. You got to hand it. He just destroyed the Bo Biden brownie point talking point immediately.
But sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored.
No, but you would take a lot of cars off the market because people would be able to afford a car.
Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said.
Trump just saved them there.
Talking about
if Trump had not started talking, that would have been terrible for Biden. He was about to have one of those brain farts.
He made a statement about the military. He said, I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is he
You're done
said,
in this segment.
He called the military stupid bastards.
I
he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape. He said stupid bastards. He said it.
Oh,
I would never say that.
Such a bad one.
Play it. Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green New
Oh,
Deal.
you don't?
No.
Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just lost the radical left.
I
Oh,
support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put
You just
forward.
lost the radical
The
left.
Biden plan, which is different than what he. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because you will. He cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or are you going to get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2
Not
minutes.
bad.
So there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape.
Bro, it doesn't
You better take a
matter,
look
by the
at
way.
that,
None of
because
this
we caught
matters.
you, in a sense, and
Trump's
sitting in the
lies
office, he
will
knew about
stick
it
to
too.
his
So don't
base.
tell
Like,
me
his
about
base
a
gonna
free
support him
transition.
regardless.
You
I'm
go
urging
first.
my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging
Jesus,
them to
this
do
is
it.
like- this is
As you know,
electioneering,
today there was
isn't
a
it?
big, it's a fair
You're urging
election.
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans.
You say that's the end of
Chris,
it? This is the
I
end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating.
Okay. So that was a shit show, to put it lightly. Melania Trump is looking good, so good for her.
I had an internet crash in the middle, so I missed a little bit. When I finished, he was talking about how Philadelphia is terrible.
Yeah, he said that Philadelphia, he urged his supporters to go out and act as poll watchers, and how some of them were pushed away from a polling station in Philadelphia because Philadelphia is terrible. He said that they were probably cheating there. He's basically saying that they're cheating in Philadelphia. I believe, well, one, that's illegal. You can't actually go to the polls and intimidate and harass people. That would be electioneering. There's laws against that. As a matter of fact, you can't even, for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of people in here, you're not even allowed to wear political merchandise when you're going to the polls. Right, Ryan? I mean, I don't know if this is different somewhere else, but you're literally not allowed to. It's considered, it's illegal. Yeah, I don't know. This is very bad. I ultimately, I think that Joe Biden's performance was horrible, because more often than not, what we want from Joe Biden is something he is incapable of doing. And that is to be a younger person, to be someone who is robust on the stage and can actually push back and fight back and clap back and even, I would say, channel the anger that we feel towards Donald Trump in the past 4 years, channel the anger that we feel towards Republicans. And that's something that Donald Trump does very well. Whether we like to admit it or not, Donald Trump is very good at being the vehicle to express every single piece of frustration that, like, his base of support feels. I really wish that Joe Biden wasn't as submissive, and I really wish that Joe Biden did a better job channeling that anger that I know a lot of you who are in this chat right now feel against Donald Trump and against everything that he's done and against the Republican Party specifically and their platform. So that's my take. I think overall it was above average for Joe, because he didn't fail to speak clearly for the most part. I think there were definitely moments when he had a couple brain farts, but overall he was way too submissive, and I don't think that's good. And I wish he was more aggressive. And he left a lot on the table. There was a lot of counter opportunities for him to have good moments that were clippable, and he failed to capitalize on them. Whereas Donald Trump, he came in like a wrecking ball in the first.
Hassan, I'm all lipped up, Hassan. Come on.
He came in like a wrecking ball in the first, I would say, the first half hour, which is where it counts, as you all know. That's when most people watch the debates, and then a lot of people tune out by then.
Biden was never going to be that guy that was going to, kind of carry the hopes of a nation on his back and deliver. They decided the Democratic Party establishment decided in this existential moment that the warrior they were going to put out on the battlefield, to save democracy, those are the terms that they often put it in, is going to be this guy, the guy that we just watched for the last 90 minutes plus. And, he delivered the same kind of performance that he delivered mostly through the debate performances, except, a handful of times when he, did okay here and there. He didn't, he didn't do anything to inspire a whole lot of confidence that he's going to be a leader who's going to, really be able to address all the problems that he correctly identified. But then the question is, what did Trump do to win back any of the people who have been peeling away from him, particularly people in the suburbs? If it's still a referendum on Trump, is my take.
You know what? That's pretty good. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And American people are a lot of American people are definitely looking for stability, and I guess Joe Biden demonstrated that. I'm still.
I don't know though. I don't know if he quite demonstrated he could bring stability.
Well, he didn't quite demonstrate he can bring stability, but he demonstrated that he's at least like a normal person, whereas Donald Trump was looking like a maniac up there on the stage, and that's like really good for the Trump supporters. But I don't know if it'll actually move a lot of independents, or I don't even know if it'll move the people in the margins. My fear has always been that Joe Biden getting rolled over, or Joe Biden having a lack of enthusiasm in his base to vote for him and rather people voting against Donald Trump, would lead to a lower voter turnout if he got like pathetically humiliated, or if he put himself in a situation where he looked really bad on stage, and that didn't really happen. So I think that is overall a positive. The bar is set very low for Joe Biden on my end as well. It's not like I'm gonna not vote for Joe Biden because, like, no matter what the he says, he's still not Donald Trump. So obviously there are a lot of people who believe in the same things that I do, but it was really. I don't know if this performance from Joe Biden will lead to less people overall voting for him come election day. Now, Austin, go ahead.
Okay, look, if you are a Democrat, if you are a Republican, your expectation of Joe Biden is on the floor for his performance in a debate. The Republican Party has framed him and the Democrats and people like myself and you, Hassan, has framed him as a stumbling old man that can't form a coherent sentence, right? This debate was a win for Joe Biden, in my opinion. He was able to put sentences together coherently, and he surpassed expectations, even my own expectations. Donald Trump needed a decisive victory here because to make up for a lot of the lost ground that he lost during the summer months. And I don't think he got that decisive victory. Okay. So I think although it was a generally underwhelming performance by Joe Biden, that underwhelming performance was actually a performance that surpassed expectations, right? That's just where we're at. And I think that's a positive for Joe Biden. And I think if you're Democrats, I think you're actually really happy with that performance because I don't think it moves the needle.
What you're talking about is people that are voting for Joe anyway. But again, you're right.
I think you like where your candidate's position is. And the best case scenario here for Joe Biden, he's not going to knock it out of the park. He's not going to move the needle. That's what you don't want. You don't want the needle to move the opposite direction, right? You just want this to be a wash. And I think it was even a little bit better than a wash. I think Joe Biden wins this debate. I do. I really do. Okay. I think that
by Trump losing, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, exactly.
You're saying that Joe Biden won the debate by Trump losing the debate by being like a psychopath on stage and like lying.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's still, exactly. That, and I think that to me, Trump needed to come out and have a home run performance. Even people within his own party.
I think he did pretty good, man.
We're saying that. I don't think so. Look, I feel like I represent the average liberal or just the average liberal in America and watching that debate, it was exciting to see Joe Biden not stutter over his words, actually land a few good blows on Donald Trump, and put together a decent performance for Joe Biden. I think it was actually refreshing.
I don't know. I think that.
But my question to you is this: where were your expectations? Like,
it's not about my expectations.
What sort of Joe Biden were you expecting to come out here?
I already admitted that, like, we need Joe Biden to be someone he's not for these debates. And that, what I thought was, like, maybe he'll take some inhalants, you know? Maybe he'll be high off of whatever kind of adrenochrome that they're pumping into his belly. Like, I wanted Joe Biden to come out and call Donald Trump fat. I wanted Joe Biden to come out, maybe not call him fat, but, like, at the very least push back. There were so many opportunities where he could have nailed him. He could have just put Donald Trump on the table and just pile drived him into the ground. And he refused to do that. And he wasn't capable of doing that. And I think it's because he is low energy. He absolutely is not as good as he used to be. Look, we're talking about a guy who was a great retail politician. We're talking about a guy who could talk your ear off for the overwhelming majority of his political career. Yeah, he was gaffe prone, but those gaffes actually made him look more lovable in the eyes of a lot of American voters, right? And this guy is now having a very hard time delivering coherent and insightful and visceral attacks against someone like Donald Trump, who left a lot of openings there. I mean, if you can't slam dunk with 200,000 dead Americans, if you can't slam dunk with a guy who recently it came out that he only paid $750 in taxes. If you can't slam dunk on that, what the fuck are we doing? I mean, this should not be a close race, is what I'm saying. And this debate should not be a close debate. If we had someone who was a little bit younger, if we had a Pete Buttigieg, or if we had an Amy Klobuchar, if we had someone who was a little bit more competent that could demonstrate that they understand how psychotic the current situation is, where we have an actual madman on stage, this would have been a drastically different outcome.
We have to remember that there are 100+ million people in this country that don't even vote. They're like, y'all take care of this. You go vote. I'm not that interested in politics, period. And some of those people do vote because they feel like it's their duty. They haven't made up their minds, so they probably didn't watch it. So that means almost everybody watching this debate had already made up their minds, which is a huge difference from 2016, where
absolutely
Hillary had all these huge leads, but they were leads that were like 43-40 or 44-41. Whereas even if some of the margins are the same, you have Biden showing leads of like, 52-48. It's like everybody having made up their minds. And so Trump would have had to flip people, like you guys are saying. Like, he would have had to not just kind of win, but he has to win so decisively that people who had already made up their minds for Biden are saying, you know what, this guy was so good and Biden was so bad that I'm actually with Trump now, which is hard because what you got tonight is just pure Trump. And it's the same thing he's been doing for 4 years. So if it didn't move people yet, why exactly did it move him tonight?
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone is having their minds changed. My fear right now is that given the lower enthusiasm that Joe Biden has in his base of support, my fear always is, will this actually cause less people to go out and vote? And you kind of pointed to this as well. There's a lot of people who are not voting in this country. Will this drive turnout? Absolutely not. This is negative campaigning. This depresses turnout overall. I don't think that this debate performance will drive turnout for either side. I don't think anyone watches this debate and goes, I wasn't going to vote leading up to this moment, but now that I've seen these two old fucks yell at one another, and one is doddering and the other one is like out of his mind, spitting everywhere, I'm motivated to vote. No, I don't think that's going to happen. My fear always is this actually going to lower turnout for Joe Biden? I don't think so overall. Like I said, I think Joe Biden is the front runner right now, and he didn't actually have a significant brain fart moment or anything like that. And we don't know how Republicans are going to weaponize this debate, but there wasn't really a lot of opportunities to weaponize this debate is what I mean. Like, Trump had some slam dunks Early on, he rolled over Biden a little bit. He battered him a little bit. I think Biden needs to be more combative. But ultimately, given that Joe Biden is the front runner, it's still his race at the moment.